Before we begin, a quick but important note. This episode contains discussions of suicide, which may be distressing for some listeners. Please be aware of your own well-being. If you or someone you know is struggling, please know that help is available. Reach out to friends, family, or professionals. You are not alone. In the United States, you can call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 for free, confidential support 24/7. Please take care while listening. Listener discretion is advised. Remember, it's okay to pause or stop if you need to.
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. If you haven't already done so, please make sure the volume of this podcast is set perfectly to your listening enjoyment. Please take your seat, whether that's on the treadmill, car, sofa, or bed, and buckle in for the last trip. My name is Jamie Beebe, and I'll be your tour guide, recreating someone's last days in paradise. On behalf of myself and everyone behind the scenes, please enjoy the Last Trip podcast. And because nobody likes a long flight to get to where they want to be, let's prepare for takeoff. Sarah Papenheim was young, talented, and full of life, a gifted blues drummer from Minnesota with dreams of making a difference. She traveled halfway across the world to study psychology in the Netherlands, never imagining that the person she shared an apartment with would become her worst nightmare. It was a quiet December afternoon in 2018 when everything changed. There was a brutal attack, a desperate attempt to escape, and a crime so shocking that it left two countries searching for answers. What really happened behind the closed doors of that Dutch apartment? Was there a warning sign no one saw? And who was the man Sarah trusted enough to live with, only for him to betray her in the worst possible way? Let's dive in to the tragic and haunting case of Sarah Papenheim. This week's case takes place in Rotterdam, Netherlands, at Erasmus University. Once you step off the train in Rotterdam, the city defies tradition and embraces the future. Skyscrapers stretch toward the sky, trams hum through the streets, and the energy feels electric. This isn't just another student town. It's a global hub of innovation, culture, and opportunity. And right in the heart of it is Erasmus University. Students travel from around the world to experience a truly international city where the classroom extends far beyond campus. Studying at EUR means you're surrounded by students from over 100 different nationalities, all bringing their own perspectives, ambitions, and stories. So it's no surprise Sarah was thriving there. She could discuss psychology with a classmate from Brazil or play in a band with someone from India. There were no limits for her in Rotterdam. But Sarah's choice to attend Erasmus University wasn't just about getting a degree. It was about transforming the way she saw the world and how the world saw her. Sarah left Minnesota to create a new space for herself, away from the trauma and grief she went through at home. It's a place where students bike to class, past cutting-edge architecture, grab coffee in hidden courtyards, and end the night in an underground music venue that only locals know about. It's a great place to be, affordable, dynamic, and filled with opportunities. Rotterdam is a city that rose from the ashes, completely shattered by war, only to reinvent itself as one of the most modern and innovative destinations in Europe. It's a place where history meets the future, where towering skyscrapers stand next to 18th century harbors, and where unexpected adventures await. And this isn't your typical Dutch city. While Amsterdam charms with its canals, Rotterdam stuns with its bold architecture and vibrant energy. It holds the largest port in Europe, a global hub of trade and industry that keeps the city moving 24/7. But that's just the beginning. Have you ever seen a floating farm? Well, now's your chance, because Rotterdam has one. The world's first, in fact. where cows graze on water in an effort to make urban farming more sustainable. And speaking of firsts, the city is home to the Boijmans van Beuningen, a museum where every single piece of art is on display, not tucked away in storage like most galleries. It's an entire world of creativity open to explore. Then there's the history, a city reborn after being nearly destroyed in World War II. But instead of rebuilding the past, Rotterdam embraced the future, turning itself into an architectural playground. The cube houses look like something from a sci-fi movie. The Erasmus Bridge slices across the skyline like a modern masterpiece. And the Markthal, a giant horseshoe-shaped market, invites food lovers to taste their way around the world. And even if you think you know Dutch culture, Rotterdam will surprise you. The city is a melting pot of cultures, buzzing with international flavors, underground music scenes, and some of the best street art in Europe. It even hosted Eurovision 2021, proving that it's not just a business hub, it's a cultural powerhouse. But while Rotterdam is a city full of opportunity, ambition, and innovation, it's also a place where real lives unfold. Sarah Papenheim traveled there to chase her dreams, and tragically, her story took a dark and unexpected turn, reminding us that even in the most promising of places, the unexpected can always happen. Let's take a moment to learn about Sarah, her journey, her passion, and the heartbreaking event that would forever change the lives of those who knew her.
Greetings, fellow lovers of the dark and macabre. Looking for more thrilling tales of true crime and suspense?
Then step aboard the murder coaster.
I'm Krista Carmen.
And I'm Matthew Brockmeyer.
And every week we bring you spine-chilling and disturbing true tales of murder and mayhem.
So strap in.
Keep your hands and feet inside the ride.
And prepare for a descent into the darkest realms of true crime.
On Murder Coaster Podcast.
Murder Coaster Podcast, available everywhere you get podcasts.
Sarah Papenheim was born on January 30th, 1997 in Twin Cities, Minnesota. She grew up with her parents, Doni Odegaard and Jerry Papenheim, along with her older brother, Josh. The two were close in age and shared a deep bond that only strengthened as they got older. When Sarah was in second grade, her parents divorced and she moved to Redding, California with her brother and mother. But she visited the Twin Cities frequently throughout her childhood, staying connected and close with her father. Sarah was smart and naturally gifted when it came to playing music. She played drums in the jazz and marching band at Foothill High School in Palo Cedro, California, graduating in 2015. And she loved being a female drummer and hit the drums better than most men, proud that she conquered a male-dominated profession. Friends said she was an unusually kind person, had both book smarts and street smarts, with a bright smile that everyone loved. During her visits to Minnesota, she was a regular on the Minneapolis blues music scene and sat in open jam sessions starting when she was just 15 years old. She was a beautiful, vibrant young woman and a talented musician, always quick to show her dazzling smile. She was a huge David Bowie fan and played with some of the best musicians on the scene. In fact, she caught the attention of the Time drummer, Jelly Bean Johnson, who was known for collaborating with Prince. He became her mentor and even nicknamed her Thumper because, as he said, she hit the drums as hard as the guys did. Sarah and her family moved back to Minnesota when she was 18, but tragedy struck in February 2016. When her older brother Josh took his own life just a few days after their mother remarried. Josh had been struggling with depression and mental health problems, but no one imagined he would end his life. This was absolutely devastating to the whole family, and Sarah took it especially hard. her only brother, was gone in an instant. Sarah struggled with the pain, but didn't let it consume her. Instead, she decided to help others, so no one else had to feel the kind of pain she felt losing her brother. She went through a lot in her teen years, but she still managed to stay so relentlessly positive that the first thing everybody associated with her was her ear-to-ear smile. Shortly after her brother's death, Sarah moved to the Netherlands. She had met a man named Nico while playing games online, and after visiting several times, they fell in love. She decided to move there to be with him and attend Erasmus University. Nico was already attending college there, majoring in business administration, and he was a rock for her while she dealt with the overwhelming grief of losing Josh. He became a positive driving force in her and her family's life. Sarah chose to study psychology with an emphasis in suicide because she wanted to help people like her brother and better understand people with mental illnesses. She also left to get away from everything that happened, to focus on herself and get an education, but the death of her brother was always on her mind. Sarah's social media posts painted a picture of a bright, happy young woman who was juggling a busy schedule of working, social life, and going to school. Her boyfriend said she was an incredible person. She meant everything to me, and I loved her more than anything. The owner of the kebab restaurant she worked in said she fit right in. From day one, she picked up everything. She was like family. She always worked with a smile, all day long, no problem, angel. Sarah returned home for visits as often as possible and kept a strong relationship with her parents and stepfather. She was scheduled to fly back to Minnesota for Christmas that year and had already booked a performance with local musicians on December 22nd. But just a week before her flight, Sarah's life was tragically cut short when she was murdered in her own apartment. What could have led to this devastating event? When Sarah arrived in Rotterdam, Netherlands, she settled into a third-floor apartment in a student housing complex called De Snor. Her roommate, Joel Schelling, was a Dutch music student about 2 years older than her. He was a talented cellist and double bass player, sharing Sarah's passion for music, making her especially excited about their living arrangement. Though they each had their own rooms, they shared a kitchen and bathroom, quickly adapting to life as housemates. They had been living together for about a year, and for Sarah, everything seemed to be going perfectly. She was living her dream of studying abroad. But with her roommate, things were becoming increasingly concerning. Her mother told ABC News, "They loved talking about music. There were times he would have highs and lows. Nothing concerned me until the last time I talked to her, when she told me this story. She said, 'Mommy, he did this, he's acting strange.' And she told her daughter not to be around him. But Sarah said, 'Mom, he is my friend. I am his only friend. He would get angry, but I can always talk him down and change his mind.'" A week before her murder, on December 6th, Sarah sent a text to her friend in Minneapolis, Adam Pryor. In the message, she confided in him about Joel's disturbing statements because he had expressed a desire to kill, claiming he intended to take the lives of 3 people. She told Adam she would have to go to the police about his alarming plans. Despite this, Adam said Sarah never indicated she felt she was in immediate danger. Now, it's possible she believed she could help Joel, that she could turn things around for him. She may have feared he would harm himself, but never imagined he would hurt her. She knew she had to report Joel's threats to the authorities, and she did. She called a mental health crisis hotline in the Netherlands, hoping professionals would step in. Health workers took the report somewhat seriously and visited Joel, but ultimately saw no reason to intervene. They determined he didn't exhibit any acute issues, though what qualifies as acute in such cases is obviously unclear. After all, openly expressing a desire to murder 3 people seems like a serious red flag to me. Regardless, their assessment focused more on his outward appearance. They noted that he was clean, well-groomed, approachable, and appeared to have a clear mind. Once again, on December 10th, 2 more mental health workers visited Sarah in Joel's apartment. However, just like before, they concluded that he wasn't a threat. According to their assessment, he remained calm, answered their questions clearly, and showed no signs of being dangerous. But they were very, very wrong. And by now, Sarah knew it. Because later that day, Sarah went to yet another reporting center and told them Joel said he wanted to become a serial killer and it was time for revenge. But they wouldn't take action soon enough to save Sarah. At this point, Donnie was extremely concerned for her daughter's safety, told her to leave immediately and stay away from Joel. Sarah tried to calm her mom down, insisting that she was Joel's only friend and didn't want to abandon him. Eventually, she realized her mom was right and decided to stay at her boyfriend's place instead. The next day, December 13th, Sarah was headed back to her apartment to get some clothes when she thought Joel would be gone. But he wasn't gone. Witnesses heard loud screaming and fighting, so they called the police. Shortly after that, Joel called his mother and confessed that he had stabbed his American roommate. Realizing the gravity of the situation, his mother made the difficult but necessary decision to call the police and tell them what her son did. When police arrived at the apartment, they found Sarah unresponsive in the bathtub, submerged in her own blood. She had been brutally beaten and stabbed 27 times, with multiple wounds to her neck and abdomen. Despite efforts to save her, she did not survive. Authorities believe she was still alive when Joel fled the apartment, ultimately bleeding to death as she waited for help. Around an hour after officers found Sarah's body, they located Joel at a train station about 60 miles from Rotterdam. He was carrying a cello case, which resulted in the train station being shut down for fear that something dangerous might be inside the large case. One witness described him as unblinking and calm, possibly in some kind of psychotic trance. Another told the Daily Mail that he seemed extremely calm when police nabbed him, like he had just finished a yoga session. Back in Minnesota, Donnie faced a mother's worst nightmare for the second time in just 3 years. Once again, police arrived at her doorstep just as they had when Josh died. But this time, they came with the devastating news that her only remaining child was gone too. This is the story of a woman who did everything she was supposed to do. She did everything right. She cared deeply for everyone around her, even for the friend who would become her killer. She saw the warning signs and begged for help. She was trying to leave, trying to save herself. But the system that should have protected her didn't. And because of that, she was taken too soon, murdered by the very person she wanted to help. After Joel was arrested, he told authorities that he couldn't remember exactly what happened. He said he remembered that he was angry with Sarah and was waiting for her because he wanted to talk to her. He remembered that they got into a physical fight and Sarah bit him during the struggle. Now, I have no doubt that when she saw Joel, she knew her life was in danger and she fought as hard as she could. But at some point, he grabbed a knife and stabbed her to death. Joel later said he only knew what happened when he saw blood on the walls and she was lying on her back. Authorities found his bloody clothes and the knife in a garbage bag in his room. Given the confession to his mother and the overwhelming evidence, the court was able to quickly prove Joel Schelling was Sarah's killer. During the court process, Joel read a letter he wrote saying, "I can't believe it was my hands that did it. Although I can't remember anything, I regret it." He regrets getting caught. I don't believe for a second he doesn't remember doing it. And although remorse doesn't make a difference, he certainly didn't show any. Because Joel continued to claim he had no memory of stabbing Sarah 27 times, the truth of what really happened in the apartment that day may never be known. Without the truth, her family was left to fight for justice, and they didn't get it. In December of 2019, the sentencing came to a heartbreaking conclusion. Joel was convicted of manslaughter, not murder, because the court couldn't prove premeditation. The judge acknowledged the brutal and violent nature of Sarah's death. However, he also considered Joel's young age and his significantly reduced accountability, as confirmed by the findings of both a psychologist and psychiatrist. They determined that Joel suffered from a combination of disorders: autism, depression, and psychosis. During their extensive examinations, they discovered he had some terrifying hallucinations. He heard voices and saw a snake man who told him to drink blood and hurt children. He also punished himself with cold showers and by beating himself with a hammer when he didn't practice long enough on his double bass. This led the judge to impose a sentence of only 6 years, despite the prosecutor's demand for 10. The court was informed that Joel had been experiencing psychosis at the time of the crime, with experts diagnosing him with schizophrenia. And besides prison time, the court imposed compulsory hospital treatment, called TBS, since the judge considered the chance of repetition very real. This means they only gave him 6 years in prison, but think he's likely to murder again. This blows my mind. Because of the risk of reoccurrence, they determined it makes long-term supervision and treatment necessary. So after he serves the 6 years, which may only be 4 years if he has good behavior, then he will go to a treatment center indefinitely, which means he'll be forced to stay the first 2 years, and then they'll reevaluate him every 2 years after that to see if he can be let out. Sarah's mother told a Dutch broadcaster that the sentence is bullshit, saying, "I just feel that injustice has been done here, and I was hoping this country would step up and protect my daughter, and at least give her some respect afterwards. But to hear that he's probably going to be out in 4 years, I'm appalled." And I completely agree with her that his sentence is bullshit. He will also have to pay Sarah's family 68,700 euros in compensation. But just the cost for her mom to bring her body back was $40,000, making the compensation he's supposed to pay worthless. Sarah's obituary reads, "Sarah will forever be known for her smile that seemed to light up the world, and the world is a darker place without her." After losing both their children, Sarah's parents started a scholarship fund in her and Josh's name, the Josh and Sarah Papenheim Memorial Psychology Scholarship, for students wishing to make a difference in the mental health industry, especially those who aspire to make advances in the area of mental health. And while an interest in music is not required, they do pay extra attention to applicants who have an interest in creating music or using music as part of mental health treatments. No family should have to endure the loss of both their children. It's heartbreaking and unfair. Yet in the face of such tragedy, they've shown incredible strength by finding a way to honor their kids' legacy through the scholarship fund. Is Rotterdam a safe place to travel? Like any place, whether you're strolling through the city as a tourist or living there as an international student, it's important to know what to expect when it comes to safety and how things might be a bit different from what you're used to back home. Rotterdam is a relatively safe city, especially compared to other European metropolises. Violent crime is uncommon, and the city has a low overall crime rate. Petty theft, like pickpocketing, can happen, particularly in busy areas like the Markthal or around Rotterdam Central Station. So it's wise to keep your belongings secure and stay alert, just as you would in any big city. Bike theft is also something to be cautious about. So always lock your bike well and use a solid chain when leaving it unattended. That said, the city is very bike-friendly and you'll see more people cycling than driving. But this comes with its own set of safety rules. In Rotterdam, cyclists have their own lanes, but they're not shy about using them. Be sure to look both ways before crossing the street or even stepping off the curb. Bikes are fast and the Dutch ride with confidence. And there are cultural differences. When you arrive in the Netherlands, one of the first things you'll notice is how direct people can be. The Dutch are known for their straightforwardness. They'll tell you what's on their minds without beating around the bush. And while this can feel blunt, don't take it personally. It's just how they communicate. It's honest, open, and based on respect. Coming from the United States, where sometimes there's an extra layer of politeness or small talk before getting to the point, this can all be a bit of a shock. But once you get used to it, you'll find that the Dutch are refreshingly transparent, which makes communication quick and clear. Another difference? Personal space. In the US, especially in larger cities, personal space is highly valued. In Rotterdam, though, you'll find that people are a little more comfortable with getting close, especially in crowded public spaces. Don't be alarmed if someone brushes past you in a tight hallway or bumping shoulders with a stranger in line. It's just part of everyday life there. And then there's the concept of time. In America, time is money, and punctuality is often seen as a sign of respect. But in Rotterdam, punctuality is a must, especially in a professional setting or a university lecture. Do not be the one to stroll in 5 minutes late. It's not about being polite, it's expected that you're on time. But perhaps the biggest cultural shift you'll feel is in the Dutch sense of independence. Dutch people are incredibly self-sufficient, and you'll notice that even in daily life. Whether it's how they take care of their business, ride their bikes, or make decisions, it's all about autonomy. That can sometimes come across as a bit reserved or distant to newcomers, but in reality, it's just how they respect each other's space and privacy. All in all, Rotterdam is a safe, open, and welcoming city, with a few cultural nuances that might take a little getting used to. Whether it's adjusting to directness, the biking culture, or the tight-knit yet independent vibe, the key is to embrace the differences. Because it's those very differences that make Rotterdam so unique and unforgettable. Now keep in mind, whether you're exploring the city solo or meeting up with friends, it's essential to stay aware and prepared. And as you set out to discover Rotterdam, or wherever you're traveling, make sure you inform someone about your plans before going anywhere. Tell someone reliable where you're going and what you'll be doing, and when to expect you back. And my number one tip to staying alive on vacation is to pay attention to your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it isn't. Sarah Papenheim arrived in Rotterdam full of excitement and potential. A talented student, a passionate musician, and someone with her whole future ahead of her. Tragically, her life was taken too soon, a loss that shocked her university friends and family. Sarah's story can help others by staying vigilant and trusting our instincts. It's easy to feel safe in places we go every day with people we think we know, but sometimes danger can find us unexpectedly. So no matter what, trust yourself. Trust the voice in your head when it tells you something is wrong. Trust your inner circle of family and friends when they tell you they're concerned. After listening to this episode, it's impossible not to feel the weight of such a senseless loss. But beyond the heartbreak, Sarah reminds us that life is fragile, and we must do everything we can to protect it, for ourselves and the ones we love. And finally, remember to leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars if you like the show, or hell, even if you don't. But either way, feel free to let me know what you think. Please follow The Last Trip on Instagram at The Last Trip Crime Pod, and subscribe on Patreon to support the show. You'll get extra research, videos, photos, and updates, and even learn more about my personal travels. That's patreon.com/The Last Trip Podcast. I'm Jamie Beebe, bringing you your last trip and signing off till the next one. Thanks for listening.